Hello, and welcome to the Pittsburgh City Council Standing Committee meeting for February 13th, 2019. My name is Chris Dotson, and with us today is Caleb Wysocki, our sign language interpreter. City Council will discuss the following legislation for a preliminary vote. Finance and Law. Reverend Burgess is the chair. Deferred paper, 2019-1307, which is a resolution amending Resolution 29 of 2019, providing for the issuance of a warrant in favor of Kramer, Maines and Associates, and Roy Cox, U.S. Steel Tower, 48th floor, 600 Grand Street, Suite 4875, Pittsburgh, PA 15219, in the amount not to exceed $19,000, in full and final settlement of an action filed with the Pittsburgh Human Relations Commission and cross-fired with the Equal Opportunity Commission by changing budget year from 2018 to 2019. New paper, Bill number 2019-1344. Resolution authorizing the mayor and the Bureau of Neighborhood Empowerment to execute relevant agreements to receive grant funding from the Benter Foundation. This funding will support the Imagination Library Program for the City of Pittsburgh through the Dollywood Foundation, providing for an agreement and expenditures not to exceed $250,000. Bill number 2019-1345. Ordinance amending and supplementing the Pittsburgh City Code, Title II, Fiscal Article 9, Property Taxes, Chapter 267, Exemptions for Industrial and Commercial Improvements, Section 267.03, Exemption Schedule, Subsection C, to include application filed during the period of June 30th, 2017 until establishing a new program and has been adopted or the program is terminated. Bill number 2019-1346. Resolution authorizing issuance of a warrant in the amount of $4,565 in favor of Daniel Bendez for damage to the sidewalk and driveway of his residence at 4345 McCaslin Street, Pittsburgh 15217, from a city public works high lift removing ice buildup from a PWSA water main break on January 3rd, 2018. Bill number 2019-1347. Resolution providing for an agreement for payment of the city's share of the 2019 operating expenses to the Allegheny County Central Tax Collection District for tax collection. Costs not to exceed $8,065.51. Bill number 2019-1356. Resolution amending Resolution number 863 of 2018, effective January 1st, 2019, entitled Resolution Adopting and Approving the 2019 Capital Budget and the 2019 Community Development Block Grant Program and the 2019 through 2024 Capital Improvement Program by reducing Bedford Dwellings Choice Neighborhood by $1,500,000 and increasing economic development and housing by $1,500,000. Public Works Committee, Ms. Carol Smith is the chair. New paper, 2019-1354. Resolution vacating a portion of Dalem Place in the 12th Ward, 9th Council District of the City of Pittsburgh. 2019-1355. Resolution providing for an agreement or agreements or use of existing agreements to set forth financial obligation and maintenance responsibilities for the project and the pedestrian facilities with PennDOT. Local costs associated with work to be done on SR 0885 Boulevard of the Allies, 88 ramps, and upgraded block traffic signals poles being being constructed and imposed by PennDOT, and further providing for the reimbursement to PennDOT of the cost estimated to be $77,007. Land Use and Economic Development, Ms. Gross is the chair. New papers, Bill number 2019-1351, resolution amending resolution number 503, approved June 27, 2000, providing for the implementation of a residential sticker parking program in the Beachview neighborhood pursuant to Pittsburgh Code Chapter 549 as to amend the streets and revenue addresses included in Area T. Bill number 2019-1352, resolution amending resolution number 574, approved July 25, 2000, providing for the implementation of a residential sticker parking program in the Squirrel Hill neighborhood pursuant to the Pittsburgh Code Chapter 549 so as to amend the streets and remove addresses included in Area K. Bill number 2019-1357, resolution amending resolution 532 of 2018 entitled authorizing the mayor and director of finance to enter into a contract or agreements or use of existing contracts or agreements on behalf of the city of Pittsburgh with the Pittsburgh Land Bank for administrative services for the 2018 Land Bank implementation at a cost not to exceed $200,000 in order to allow expenditures in 2019. Urban Recreation, Mr. Coghill is the chair. New papers, 2019-1348. Resolution amending resolution number 444 of 1977 in order to rename the Special Summer Food Service Trust Fund as Special Food Service Programs Trust Fund for background purposes. Note that prior to resolution number 444 of 1997, a new trust fund was created every year. A grant was issued, including 315 of 1971, 240 of 1972, 166 of 1973, and 295 of 1975. Starting with resolution number 444 of 1977, the city stopped creating additional yearly funds, consolidated the older funds, and started depositing the new annual grants into a single trust fund. The city's Department of Parks and Recreation now seeks to rename the Special Summer Fund Service Trust Fund as Special Food Services Program Trust Fund in order to reflect the additional food service programming is conducted throughout the school year and not merely the summer. Bill number 2019-1349, resolution authorizing the Director of the Department of Parks and Recreation and or the Director of the Department of Public Works and Director of the Office of Management and Budget to enter into agreements in individual amounts of $10,000 or less with performers, instructors, artists, referees, and persons with specialized skills in connection with the department's recreational and instructional program and special event services. Bill number 2019-1350, resolution providing for an agreement or agreements, leases, and or license agreements for the use of certain property for senior facilities for the provision of center services to seniors in an amount not to exceed $87,010, chargeable to and payable from the Seniors Committee Program Trust Fund in the Department of Parks and Recreation. Intergovernmental Affairs Committee, Mr. O'Connor is the chair. Deferred paper, Bill number 2018-0983, Resolution authorizing the mayor and the director of the Department of Finance to execute a quitclaim deed or deeds and any other necessary or appropriate documents, agreements, and instruments conveying as is all of the city's rights, title, and interests, if any, in designated city-owned properties to the Urban Redevelopment Authority of Pittsburgh for consideration of $1 each, contingent upon the mayor and the director of the Department of Finance first entering into a cooperation agreement or agreements with the URA, setting forth the rights and obligations of the city and the URA relating to these initial conveyances, and further setting forth the rights and obligations of the city and the URA relating to the subsequent deposition of these properties to third parties. Now, this concludes the reading for February 13th, 2019. Thank you and have a wonderful day.
Good morning and welcome to Pittsburgh City Council Standing Committee meeting of Wednesday, February 13th. Our first order of business is, after I say Happy Valentine's Day tomorrow to those of you who are watching, our first order of business is public comment. Members of the public that want to address council, you'll be giving 3 minutes. The green light says your time has begun. Yellow light means 1 minute to summarize. Red light means your time has expired. Please relinquish the podium. First speaker, please.
Good morning. My name is Yvonne F. Brown, and I have something that I think will be delightful for many of you. If you haven't bought a Valentine's present for a special person, look at these. Aren't they beautiful? Down at 7-Eleven, a young man, his mother made these. They're selling it right down near the boulevard, 7-Eleven. The only reason why I'm doing this is because he didn't ask me to do this. But if this lady is trying to make some money, and look how pretty it is. I bought it for my grandbabies. One seen them, she said, Grandma, this is for my girlfriend. It's a birthday present. So think about it. Now, it's Black History Month, and I wanted to bring back some memories. Last year, we had Black History program. Last year, and on here is some people that I know you remember: August Wilson, Nate Smith, Eunice Howes, Salahuddin's sister. Now there's a spot missing, and that was Salahuddin, and they stole the picture. But he wasn't bad looking. He had a big afro. Sharp brother had his dashiki on. This year, we had a group of singers, and this is for this year. We had a pretty good time. Okay, but this year, I was there and the fellow said, Miss Brown, I remember you from Lions. And he said, you know what, Miss Brown? He said, I was at a meeting one time. He said, you stood up. He said, you didn't say a word. And they turned to him and said, put her out. He said, Miss Brown, he said, I'm looking. You did not say one word. And they were saying, put you out. And he said, I sat, he said, I thought about it. He said, you know, they are afraid of that woman and what she knows. I also wanted to say that yesterday, people called me Mr. Krause. When I was clapping, he attempted to stop me. I got a 20-second clap? Huh? Do you understand, Mr. Krause, if you hate me that bad, you should let somebody pro tem and introduce me, so you don't have to say, good morning, Mrs. Brown, then take and try to stop me from even clapping. You had me, can't turn my head to the back. Miss Rudiak, I looked to the side. She called, I was looking at the window thinking, look, why are you doing this? You didn't think it was that bad when you asked me. You remember what you asked me back there? And I'll tell you next week if you don't. You could ask me that personal question, but I can't even speak. And you know, I thought it was improper. And I think that's the reason why you're treating me the way you are. I didn't do what you asked me to do. I thought it was improper. And I don't think I should have had to even answer to it. But I am now. I know that's why I'm answering, because I didn't do what he asked me to do.
Next speaker, please.
My name is Les Ludwig. I live in Squirrel Hill. How much is 1 and 1? 1 plus 1? It's 2, isn't it? It was always 2. And yet we have today, nationally, candidates who are completely ignoring the simple fact that 1 and 1 is 2. They're saying we don't have enough money. And I stood here and presented you with the potential for $374.4 trillion. And what's really going on, Mr. Burgess? We forgive you your taxes. So this year we're going up another 1% to 26%. Well, fine, you didn't collect it. And they're also not spending it because they don't have it. So they say, we don't have enough money. So therefore, there's not enough money for free college education for the minority part of our society. There isn't enough money for housing, for dope addiction, and on and on and on. And all of you people are sitting here, and not one of you has called me and said, Les, are you full of hot air? Where the hell are you getting your numbers? Well, it happens that they're all federal statistics, and it's a question of interpretation. And so it's a national disgrace of three-party system that doesn't exist, and Howard Schultz last night got up and said it. But I said it months ago. Wake up, America. The money is there. Learn how to collect it and to use it wisely. I thank you.
I rarely say anything about public comment, but I will say this. I believe in free education up to community college level. I think that our economy has changed, and not just for minority students, but for any students. I think, and personally, if we could find a way to give students up to an associate degree tuition, just like we do for high school, I think that's not based on race, but based on everybody. But that's a different conversation. That's what I think. We call the roll, please.
Mr. Cargill. Here. Mrs. Gross. Here. Ms. Harris. Here. President Kraus. Here. Mr. Lavelle. Here. Mr. O'Connor. Here. Mrs. Kell Smith. Mrs. Strasburger. Here. Reverend Burgess. 8 members present.
Say aye. All right, we have a deferred paper. I'm the Finance and Law Committee, which I am the chair. First committee up. Deferred paper.
Bill 1307, resolution amending Resolution 29 in an amount not to exceed $19,000 in full and final settlement of an action filed with the Pittsburgh Human Relations Commission and cross-file with the EEOC by changing the budget year from 2018 to 2019.
Need a motion.
Motion to approve.
Need a second.
Second.
Any conversation? No conversation. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposers, nay. Next bill, please.
Bill 1344, resolution authorizing the mayor and the Bureau of Neighborhood Empowerment to execute relevant agreements to receive grant funding from the Benter Foundation. This funding will support the Imagination Library program for the city through the Dollywood Foundation, providing for an agreement and expenditures not to exceed $250,000 for this stated purpose.
A motion.
Motion to approve.
Need a second. Second. Any conversation? Grant fund received. No conversation. All those in Ms. Harris.
What is this?
May I? May I answer that?
Dolly, I didn't even ask the question yet.
What is this? I'm very familiar with this program.
Ms. Harris.
Thank you. Okay. I think it had somewhere in here, let me see, Dolly Parton, so it's Dolly Wood Foundation?
Question.
Yes.
Mr. Cross says he has the answer.
So happy to share. This is a wonderful program that Dolly Parton started, I want to say, probably 30 or more years ago. It supplies a free book to every child once a month up to the age of 5, from birth to 5. And it's completely free and underwritten by her foundation. And something like 100 million books have been distributed since she founded this foundation. And so we're going to enter into an agreement with them to partake in this. And every child up to the age of 5, from birth to 5, receives one free book a month for everyone that signs up to participate in it.
I think you used to do that back when my kids were early. It's great. You learn something new every day.
Thank you very much. All
Thank
those
you.
in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposers, nay. Next bill, please.
Bill 1345, ordinance amending and supplementing the Pittsburgh City Code at Title II, Fiscal Article 9, Property Taxes, exemption for industrial and commercial improvements, exemption schedule, subsection E, to include applications filed during the period of June 30th, 2017, until legislation establishing a new program has been adopted or the program is terminated.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Yeah, discussion though, please.
Discussion.
Yeah. We were all just sidebarring about this exact thing. Councilman, do you have any further update? The way we're reading it, we were thinking that this is,
Where are we at?
are we
We're
on
on
the
1345.
1345? Am I on the
Yes.
right bill?
Yeah, see, I have to put on my I can't see, so I have to
So-
put on my glasses. So I broke my glasses preaching, and I'm vain, so I don't like to wear my broken glasses. I stick them to them so high, so I can't get new glasses for a week, but I can't see, so I have to put them on. And, now, so you got me so that I
I'm
can't.
sure that was a fun moment when
vanity.
while you were preaching.
In my vanity. I put them down in the pulpit, put the tablet over it, smack the tablet, smash it. So anyway, that's a second thing. Okay, question you're asking me is,
We're hoping, so we all know that we're very close on redrafting the LRTA so that it's affordable
Yes.
only. And
Yes.
so we're expecting that this one is just to limp us along, but even next week, if we finish up the LRTA for affordable only and we're all comfortable with it, this wouldn't preclude us from introducing,
oh, right, that's exactly right.
so we're all understanding
Yes.
it the same way.
That's exactly right.
Just double checking.
That's exactly right.
Thank you, sir.
All those, Ms. Harris?
Yeah. If we're giving the exemption to industrial and commercial, what about residential? Why not?
Not what alert, if you come, that's not what alert does, but come on.
No, it might not be, but
Greg Gittman with the mayor's office. So the reason is that the extension that we did, or that Councilman O'Connor proposed, the administration supported in August of last year, covered the residential tax abatements. This was
Okay,
just an
okay.
oversight. So, yeah,
thank you.
you're welcome.
Ms. Gross?
But just to clarify, Mr. Glenn, did
Yes.
we, you just heard us say that even if next week we have the new version finalized, that's not a problem?
Yep, nothing precludes council from changing this or, or establishing a new program. So,
Great.
The intent of this was just to make local economic stimulus under the same rules as all the other abatement programs.
Right, and I'll just share with other council members that you all know I'm very close to the inclusionary zoning iPod that will apply just for Lawrenceville, and it will work best if we're not just giving away LRTAs for not affordability, right? So we want to make sure that we have those two different programs in sync. Okay, thank you.
Any other conversation? No conversation. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposers,
Thanks,
nay.
Fred.
Next bill, please. Thank you
Bill
very much.
1346, resolution authorizing issuance of a warrant in the amount of $4,565 in favor of Daniel Bendis for damage to the sidewalk and driveway of his residence for a city PW high lift removing ice buildup from a PWSA water main break on January 3rd, 2018.
Need a motion?
Motion to approve.
Need a second?
Second
Conversation,
discussion.
Ms. Harris?
Morning.
Good morning.
Morning.
Sorry. Cold. Margaret Vitale from the Law Department. I'm the claims administrator. This occurred last January. Our 3rd Division crew was asked to assist PWSA with a large ice buildup from a water main break on McCaslin Street. The high lift that was used, the bucket on it, gouged out and cracked portions of the sidewalk and driveway of the residents that had just been replaced in 2017. There's photos of it. There's also photos of our high lift on the scene.
Do you have a picture?
They leave them downstairs.
It's okay. I can see
Left
it
them on my
later.
desk when I grabbed.
I can see it later.
Yeah, I can email them to you. So the damage, because of the gouges, the portions had to be replaced, and that's the cost for replacement of those areas.
How much of this?
It was slabs throughout because they had to go up into the driveway to get the sidewalk. So it's
Wow.
whatever sections had to be replaced, we had to replace them, so.
Okay. Thank
We
you.
we are requesting from at least PWSA reimbursement for our employees' time
That's great.
for that, so.
Thanks,
Okay,
Margaret.
Thank you.
Motion approved on the table. Any other conversation or conversation? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposers, nay.
doing that.
Next bill, please.
They're all doing that.
Bill 1347, resolution providing for an agreement for payment of the city's share of the 2019 operating expenses to the Allegheny County Central Tax Collection District for tax collection. Cost not to exceed $8,065.51.
Motion.
Motion to approve.
Need a second? Second. Any conversation? No conversation. Mrs. Harris.
Yes. Who's here? Morning, Margaret.
Morning, Director.
I didn't want you to come up here for nothing.
Sure, no problem. Margaret Lanier, Director of Finance. Purpose of this bill, this is an annual request to receive payment for the Allegheny County Tax Collection Committee. This committee has oversight on Jordan tax collection for our earned income tax. The money is used for an audit every year on Jordan. It's also used for our advertising, it's used for our solicitor. And this is the city's share, the $8,065.51.
Okay. We did this every year.
We do this every
I
year,
remember
because
this.
we have to budget for the committee every year.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other conversation? No conversation. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposers, nay. Next bill, please.
Bill 1356, resolution amending resolution number 863 by reducing Bedford Dwellings Choice neighborhood by $1,500 and increasing economic development and housing by $1,500.
Motion.
Motion to approve.
Need a second. All right, I can talk to this. The Housing Authority applied for a choice application to the federal government for the Hill District. We were informed that we did not make the final list. Therefore, we have reallocated in the budget, the capital budget, the money that was set aside for choice that goes to a different line item that is economic development and housing, which will be used citywide, not just for the choice. So the money will still be used for housing, but it will be available for citywide projects versus just specifically for choice. So it does not lessen our commitment to affordable housing, it just broadens the availability to other projects. Erica?
Do you, just remind me, did we know this, when we were discussing the budget this last year? We did not know whether we had gotten approval or not. That was a question mark still.
The choice award will be made in a couple of months, but we know as of couple weeks ago that we didn't make the short list.
Okay.
So not making a short list means, you're not being interviewed. If you're not interviewed, then you can't get you're not the finalists. So they announced the finalists. They still haven't announced the award winners yet. From the finalists, if there's 5, 3 will get awards. So that's kind of how this works. but we did not. We were not successful in making the finalists, so there's no need to keep that in the budget because the choice, and Mr. Lavelle can talk about this too. No, we may reapply, but then if we reapply, that will not be for this year. That'll go forward to other years, and so that conversation will be had. Okay, Ms. Harris.
Is this still the one from like?
No,
Okay.
no. This is another
What
one.
I was saying.
Yes, you were talking. This is not the.
This is a second
This
one.
is the second choice. The
Okay.
choice in the East End, the Larmer choice, is in its last or next to last year. Next to last year.
Because we received that.
We received the Larmer choice, and then that money will free up. This would have in many ways replaced it, but that money will still be used for housing, but not specifically for Bedford. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposers, nay. That takes us to the invoices. Invoices on the table. Is there a motion?
Motion to approve.
Is there a second? Conversation about the invoices. Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposers, nay. There are no interdepartmental transfers. There are P cards. The P cards are on the table. Need a motion for the P card?
Motion to approve.
Need a second? Conversations of the P cards? No conversation of the P cards. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposers, nay. Takes us to the next committee of the day, Public Works Committee. Ms. Cal Smith is the chair. We have a new paper.
Bill 1354, resolution vacating a portion of Darlem Place in the 12th Ward, 9th Council District of the city.
Need a motion?
Motion to approve.
Is there a second? Any conversation? I'm okay with this. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposers, nay. Next bill, please.
Bill 1355, resolution providing for an agreement to set forth financial obligations and maintenance responsibilities for the project and the pedestrian facilities with PennDOT. Local costs associated with work to be done on SR 0885, ADA ramps and upgraded black traffic signal poles being constructed and inspected by PennDOT, and further providing for the reimbursement to PennDOT of the costs estimated to be $77,707.50.
Need a motion?
Motion to approve.
Is there a second? Second. Any conversation? Seeing nothing. Ms. Gross.
Forgive me, this is specifically because it says both the ADA ramps and the upgraded black traffic signal poles. I just want to say publicly that my constituents have had problems working with PennDOT on both of these issues. And Councilwoman Smith and I have talked about this and kind of like how to have that conversation. And so I don't really have any questions about this bill, except that it's not in my district, but when the exact same project happened in my district on Butler Street, there was a community uproar about the giant black traffic signal that is kind of highway infrastructure that was plopped down on a very narrow sidewalk in Butler Street, right almost completely obstructing a handicap ramp. And a giant silver, 5-foot tall robotic signal control box that was put down almost right in front of a small shop's front door. We had to have PennDOT move the robotic control box, which they're very large. They're much larger than the old ones, right? I mean, I feel like they're as tall as me or something. To the other side of Butler Street. We then had to, thankfully, because of very active citizenry, had a walkthrough for 20 blocks of Butler Street with ADA organizers. Because the places that PennDOT was going to place the ADA ramps, I wanted to say were almost a little bit random. So that if you were really, truly had mobility issues and you were trying to just make your way up Butler Street, you would have to go sometimes a block out of your way and up other sidewalks and across to get to a ramp that you can use. So there was a lot of effort and energy expended by my neighborhood businesses, residents, and organizers to try to get to a solution that was actually urban and walkable and worked for Butler Street. And at the time, I was talking with our planning department, this was before DOMI was created, about us needing basically almost neighborhood-specific co-op agreements with PennDOT. Things have progressed since then, and PennDOT, I hear, is working on a kind of more like, all right, so even though PennDOT calls Butler Street a highway, that they would then create different engineering rule books, for lack of a better word, for urban PennDOT roads. So I just want to raise this issue because it is something to watch out for. And again, while this part of Boulevard of the Allies is not my district, the traffic signals, even though they're gargantuan and take up sidewalk space, if you're sitting behind a Port Authority bus on Butler Street, you can't see the traffic signal, even though it extends all the way across your lane, because it's made for people going 35 miles an hour or 55 miles an hour on a street like McKnight Road. And it's really not well designed for an urban environment, and it's an obstruction on the sidewalks as well. And I could go on, but thank you for letting me just issue this and a word of warning that this is an issue, I think, that touches on some of the issues that Councilwoman Strasburger and I were talking about a few weeks ago at the table. They're interrelated, how we interact with PennDOT and the pluses and minuses of that relationship. I'll stop. Thank you, sir.
Any other conversation? Seeing no conversation, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposers, nay. I'm going to take a little privilege of the chair. There is a city employee who passed recently whose name was Richard Meritzer. If he were here, he would be at the table having conversations about this issue. He lived in my district and was a committee person and one of the nicest gentlemen I have ever known that worked for the city. His illness was very aggressive, happened very, very quickly, and so even in the middle of this meeting, since he would be here, this would have been the time he would have come to talk to us. If you do not mind, let's just have a moment of silence for Richard and his family. Thank you for that indulgence. That now exhausts the Public Works Committee, takes us to Land Use and Economic Development Committee. We have a recommitted paper.
Bill 1353, ordinance amending and supplementing the Pittsburgh Code by creating Title 13 entitled Stormwater Management and by deleting Stormwater Management text from Title 10 Building Chapter 1003.
Rose.
So we just need to, the motion is to be held for a cablecast public hearing.
Is there a second? Second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposers, nay. New paper, please.
Bill 1351, resolution amending resolution number 503, providing for the implementation of a residential sticker parking program in the Beachview neighborhood pursuant to Pittsburgh Code Chapter 549, so as to amend the streets and remove addresses included in Area T.
Need a motion.
Motion to approve?
Is there a second?
Second.
Any conversation? Ms. Harris?
It's a sticker program, and I know they haven't been using stickers, and I'd like to know, are we using stickers? Because everyone liked that better. They could tell who belonged in the neighborhood, who was not.
Andrew Dash, Assistant Director of City Planning. The answer is no. It's not stickers. It's the residential permit parking program.
Okay. Why, I mean, they're so small. Why not give them something even to put on the back of their mirror?
This was, city planning does the determinations around the districts and the locations in which permit parking takes place. The parking authority is the one that does enforcement of the residential permit parking, so the decision to move from, the stickers to enforcement by plate was a decision that they had made. My understanding from them, they would be the ones to better attest to this, is that it does allow for greater enforcement of permit parking by doing the enforcement by plate than the enforcement by sticker, because now they can drive around and identify all the plates as opposed to before where they had to walk to actually identify stickers.
Right, but there's people in some of those neighborhoods that know that some of those vehicles don't belong there for 2 hours at a time. Now they can't tell to call in and say, hey, they're not doing this area.
Councilwoman,
So-
can I address you?
Sure.
As a member of the parking authority, I wanted to just provide a little context here. So they can still, if they suspect that there's a car that doesn't belong because that's been parking there for over the allotted time allowed per the grace period, they can still call in parking authority and find out with the license plate number, make and model whether that car has a permit or not. And if it does not, enforcement will go out and take care of that neighborhood. We get calls like that all the time into our office, and we make sure it's taken care of. But if John Fournier were still at the parking authority, he'd be able to come to the table, I'm sure, and talk to us about the increased enforcement success that the change has brought, being able to more efficiently cover more areas of an enforcement zone, because it would, the previous system required enforcement agents to have to park, get out of their car, walk the streets, see if the sticker was there, get back in their car, drive to another location. This, because it's automatic and it uses license plate detectors technology, you can just drive and it'll tell you whether or not the vehicle is permitted or not.
Well, yeah.
And so I know that the parking authority is working to replace Mr. Fournier and get a new director of enforcement in that position. And so when that person is in place, I'm sure we'll be able to bring them into to council and answer your questions about
And that's great to have them where they can drive around and check the license plate. But the community does not know who belongs there and who don't belong there. And it would be nice to have a little sticker, even if it was on the mirror, so that the community knew who belonged and who didn't belong in areas that some of them come and go, and then they start parking there all day. So I guess I'll talk to who? Parking authority?
That would be with the parking authority, yes.
Okay, so they were the ones that issued the stickers?
That's correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other sticker-related conversation? If not, all those in favor signify by, oh, I'm sorry, there are two. Ms. Kell Smith and followed by Mr. Coghill.
I just want to put a pitch in for Natchez Street in Mount Washington. They have asked for sticker parking, permit parking, for a very long time, and they had waited during the period when we were making some changes to that. And I do want to thank Dan Gilman Chief of Staff Gilman for working on some of this, because he knew it needed some changes there. So, and for everyone who worked on it with him. But I think that a lot of it came about from his urging and seeing that there were so many obstacles there. Or so many challenges there. So I just want to say that these people have been trying for years, and they really want it on their street. And so if we could just at least review that one more time, and I'll get you the contact information.
And I can look through the files and come back to you and let you know what we have as to prior engagement with those residents.
I think it's a really challenge. It's a real challenge. I mean, honestly, I think half of the problems would be solved if we would enforce. When city planning or the CBA or whoever gives the approval for apartment rentals and whatever in the city, they're usually based on 2 parking spots, but that's never enforced. And I think that that's a challenge in the city, because you have people being forced out of their neighborhoods that have lived there forever because all of a sudden they have a rental next to them. And, you see elderly people. I mean, you think common sense would say if you live next to an elderly person, don't park in front of their spot. If you see a handicapped person, don't park in front of their spot, in front of their house. Try to give them some space to carry their groceries, especially when they have steps and whatever. But I think, being a considerate neighbor, we can't legislate morality, so I think trying to address enforcement would also be a good avenue to go. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Coghill.
Yeah, I just had a couple of comments. This particular spot, these people are glad to get rid of permit parking. It just doesn't quite work for them. But I want to mention, I know with the new technology, they're just driving by. They don't even have to get out of their vehicle. They got the plate there, and they can issue the citation. Is that right?
I believe so.
Okay.
Again, that's enforcement is a parking authority issue, but that's my understanding.
Got it. I talked to David Honorato about this, but we have a couple spots in my neighborhood, an auto body shop, for instance, or auto mechanic. He parks cars out in front of his place. It's his own driveway he's blocking, right? Okay, so, but somebody's coming by in the car and they're issuing, 4 or 5 citations before he can even get out and say, look, I'm just ready to move out into my lot. And I understand that car, even if he's blocking his own driveway, is illegally parked. However, we need to have some human contact as to say, you know, this guy, we're trying to attract business in Beechview, not penalize the people who have been there for years and years. He paid, I think, $1,200 in parking citations last year, parking in front of his own driveway. So it just doesn't make sense to me. I wish that we could be a little more personal, you know, and get out of the vehicle and talk to the dealer. And I think we need to show some leniency and not cite somebody who's blocking their own driveway for 10 minutes. And if they can get out of the car and talk to the shop owner, they would know that. But so I just want to bring that to the attention. You know, they're kind of getting tired of paying citations that, you know.
Of course. Any other conversation? No other conversation. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposers, nay. Next bill, please.
Bill 1352, resolution amending resolution number 574, providing for the implementation of a residential sticker parking program in the Squirrel Hill neighborhood pursuant to Pittsburgh Code, Chapter 549, so as to amend the streets and remove addresses included in Area K.
Need a motion, Ms. Gross.
Motion to approve.
Any conversation? No conversation. All
This one
those,
says sticker 2.
pardon me?
This one says sticker 2.
Yes, it is, and we're still having a sticker conversation. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposers, nay. We're moving on to the last bill in this committee.
Bill 1357, resolution amending resolution 532 of 2018, authorizing the mayor and director of finance to enter into a contract or agreement on behalf of the city with the Pittsburgh Land Bank for the administrative service for the 2018 Land Bank implementation at a cost not to exceed $200,000 in order to allow expenditures in 2019.
Need a motion, Ms. Gross.
Motion to approve with discussion?
Second. I can explain that if you
I
defer.
would, yeah, I don't see a dollar amount.
All right, there's a dollar amount there.
Oh, there it is.
Basically,
big one.
yeah, the money is from last year's budget. Is in the finance department. It has been, the finance department has encumbered it, but we need this legislation for the land bank to be able to use it, and in 2019, and that's what this legislation does. The money's already earmarked, and it's already been encumbered by finance. This gives now the land bank the opportunity. We didn't use it in 2018. It allows us to use it in 2019 because we just start getting properties. And so now we have a need to expend these dollars, and now we'll be able to expend them in 2019 versus 2018 when they were encumbered.
Would you like to give us an idea of any of the land bank board members what expenditures will be
Sure.
in 2019?
He's
Sure.
the chairperson.
Sure, I can tell you. Well, there's dollars attached to getting the land, taking it through the, removing the liens. Also, the land bank is, by law, once we take property, we have to maintain it. Unlike the city, we must maintain it, which means we must shovel the snow, we must keep it boarded, we must cut the grass. So it is those functions that other than our normal administrative, we also are growing administratively from 2 staff people probably to 3 or 4 over the next year. And so that's all part of the budget, but the $200,000 I think is mostly, this money is mostly for land stuff, not for administrative. It's mostly for the land stuff, for the actual buildings or land that the land bank gets. It's the money to help us, well, not help us, to pay for getting the land, getting the title clean, and then maintain it once it's clean.
So you were doing the trial property, and so in 2019, we'll be looking forward to, how many parcels do you anticipate?
Well,
You see, this budget is for acquiring
Yeah.
those parcels?
so the first step of the land bank, we will be looking at properties that are already either owned or controlled by the city, right? We are in the midst of getting an agreement with Allegheny County so that we can use their sheriff's sale process, that we don't quite have their powers and that they can get first preference at sheriff's sales. We don't have that, but we're working on an agreement with the county where we'll have that power too. And so I can't give you a specific amount because once those powers occur, we'll be able to take land a lot faster, right? And so, but we have 20 properties or so right now that are on our list to occupy. And so I would think that we will have scores of property at least by the end of the year, if not hundreds. So that's what this, but the last thing is, and this is a land bank conversation, but we know when we went to the conferences and we've met with other land banks across the country, they taught us a very valuable lesson, which we're going to follow, is that you should not take land if you don't have a sense of its ultimate purpose. That the land bank is not a good holder of land. The land bank is an excellent recycling of land. And so when we go after a piece of property, that's why the property reserve makes sense to us, because all those properties in the property reserves have already been, end goal has already been established by community groups for them. They've already been through some form of a community process. So those are our first low-hanging fruit. Those are the first properties that we have assessed and amassing and trying to get control of, because that's our goal. Yeah, because again, we're more expensive than the city. The city can control the properties and just sit on it and do nothing. You know, it's self-insured. You know, for us, we have to be very aggressive once we get it. So that will be the least initially the filter that we will use. So we will work probably mostly, my expectation is, our work will be mostly with community-based organizations who are trying to do, for like in Homewood, we have Jerome Jackson, Operation Better Block. They have $1 million to do, I think, I want to say 10 houses, right? But they're a great candidate for us, right? They need someone to help them amass land, amass housing to be rehabbed. We can do it faster than the city, and they already have a funding to rehab them and an end purpose in mind. That's a no-brainer for us. That's the kind of person we want to do business with. And he's doing it for affordable housing, so it checks all the boxes. That's a long conversation of what we're doing. There are other board
I
members.
know that it's on the website, and you could just remind the public. I apologize that I haven't been keeping up with it, but your process and your documents and your plans are all public, and the budget and all that kind of stuff. So
Yep, it's all on the website.
the city website.
All right, other conversation. Ms. Smith.
So I also serve on the land bank, but everyone here knows I'm so jaded about the whole process with the land. First of all, it is our land, and I just don't feel comfortable with the land bank from the very beginning, as you know. But I can tell you that we're constantly watching what's going on there, because 3 years before I was elected, we had one woman from Ferrywood who would always say it's a land use issue. They want the land, and sure enough, I mean, I'm watching what's happening, and I between our land and our water and everything and even our air now, everything that's going on around us. I mean, I think that the more eyes, the better. So I actually think the land bank should give either monthly or quarterly briefings to city council, so that we know. So the more eyes, the better to watch what's going on. I try to update people and talk to people when I think of it, or when I think of something that might be of concern. I'm really good at watching for my district and making sure nothing's shady's happening in my district, to the best I can. But this is not my forte. So I want to be, I think the more eyes we have, the better. And I'm always jaded when it comes to community groups. Everybody knows it. I talk about it all the time. I turned in a community group in my area to the IRS and the FBI, and the IRS shut them down. So I have a lot of concern when it comes to this, because I see what happens with land and housing and community-based organizations sometimes. And some of them are great, and some of them are doing great work, but that doesn't mean all are, and that doesn't mean somebody shouldn't be watching what's going on in the city. And so for me, I'm constantly watching, so I think we should have briefings for the members.
Ms. Harris.
Yes. We did have land banks before this land bank that was made, so now we're sort of duplicating what we actually have in real estate. And I would really like to be briefed and see what's there, particularly in District 1, before it ends up there, because it might end up there. Are we voting to put it in there? And if we are, I haven't seen any come through yet.
I think they're changing that process. That's why I think council needs to be aware of what's happening.
So we have not yet, we started the process because of that concern, we've started only the process of looking at land at first in the land, in the 3 areas that the land bank members were on. That's my district, Mr. Lavelle's district, and Ms. Smith's district. I believe that the parcels that we have selected so far have only been the 3 districts, and we did that on purposely, because those members were on the board and knew their districts. We have not recommended any land outside of those 3 districts on purpose.
None of mine yet have been recommended.
But because you're on the board, and so my point is that there is a desire for the council people to be directly involved in the process. Number one. Number two, we have been meeting for the last, although it may not, we probably need a council briefing because we've been meeting with the real estate department and the treasurer and the city treasurer for the last 4 months or so, to talk about the interaction between the two and to redo that whole process so that it makes sense. And so we were scheduled to have a briefing for state officials, and think would make sense is to extend that briefing to council members too. We're going to have an event in the next month or so. It hasn't been scheduled yet. I will invite all members of council because in that event, there'll be some refreshments, but we're going to give a briefing as to where we're at, what we're doing. And so I think it makes sense to open that up to council too, and that you and we were going to do it just for state officials. Let's do both, and we're going to do a presentation and bring you up to speed as to where we're at and where we see ourselves going over the next 12 months, because we will now move the land bank is now fully functional. Now we're just moving, we'll start moving much, much faster. And you're going to see that over the next year from being structured, which we are now we're implementing, and then over the next year, we'll be moving at light speed. So I'll do that too. Any other conversations about the land bank? Ms. Harris?
Yes. I don't know why you'd have a meeting with the state and not a meeting with the council first. This is not the state's land. This is the city's land, and it belongs to the people of the city of Pittsburgh if it is in the real estate department. I don't think that's true that the real estate department leaves go all properties owned by the city. When I've brought in properties to their attention, they have been cleaned up and taken care of. But I don't want this to turn into something, because there's always been a land bank that has been with real estate. And at first, when this was decided, it was supposed to be free. Now we're hiring people to do the same thing the real estate department does. And what I want to say is, in my district, I want to make sure that my neighborhoods have seen any properties before they go into this land bank, because it doesn't make sense for the communities to have to pay something when they wouldn't with the real estate department for putting it in a land bank.
I'll let Ms. Smith respond.
Well, just the first part I'm going to respond to, because I could shut you off after the second part. But anyway, so the part about why are we meeting with the state was because it was brought up by a board member, Dr. Bay, who asked for the meeting with the state. And it was suggested that we meet with the new members and brief them on what we're doing. I actually questioned it as well at the time, to be honest with you, because I really do think council needs briefed And I think there's benefits.
I think real estate needs briefs too.
Yeah, and I think there's benefits to meeting with the state because they do have some, a lot to say about the land banks and about what we do here in the city. So I think it's not unwise to meet with them, but I think that we should also be including council, not just a one-time event, but I think it should be on a regular basis.
There is an ongoing conversation with real estate and the land bank about how we function for the city. The land bank is not, even though it's a separate agency, they are having high-level conversations. They are over, we are attempting to restructure both sides so that it's more efficient. Right now, if you want a piece of property that says, it may say the city of Pittsburgh, but if we have not clean title, that process is a minimum of 18 months. From when you see it to when you're able to get title to it, it's 18 months. That's number one. Number two, the properties that are in the property reserves in the city, many of them are sitting there without really, the community group said we want to build a shopping mart there, but they don't have funding for it. They actually have no skin in the game. They reserve the property and it sits for 5, 7, 10, 12 years. No one else has access to it and it just sits there, right? And there's no person, there's no vehicle that says to the community group, okay, it's been 5 years now, the property's still in the reserves, do you still have a plan for it? What are you going to do with it? Do you have money for it? There's nothing that monitors that process. What we're trying to do with the city is to create a seamless process of land recycling where there is a single process that everybody participates in, everybody knows about it, that is public, so that you can go on the website and see what is free and clear, what has been, what is still has liens against it, that, you can't do that now. If you go on the website and look at a piece of property, it'll say city in Pittsburgh, but it may be sitting on $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 worth of liens, and you're 18 months at a minimum from when you apply to get the property to when you can actually have free and clear title. And that process is not, most of my neighborhoods, they pop it up on the county website. They say they see City of Pittsburgh. They think the city owns it. They think they can come down, put $1,000 down, or whatever the number is, and buy that piece of property. And they absolutely can't. And because there are thousands of abandoned and vacant properties in the city, I think it's 8,000, some number like that. And because of that, we can't clean them fast enough, right? It's very expensive. There's not a process in place to clean all that land. What I mean by clean is have clear title to it. And there's nobody doing it. Unless someone comes to us and says, city, we want this property for this purpose, it'll sit there with $30,000, $40,000 worth of liens, and again, 18 months in order from the time. So it's not very welcoming for a community group or for me, a homesteader. I want to rehab a house. I saw this house, it's abandoned, I have $50,000, I want to go get it. Well, okay, good. 18 months to 2 years from when you tell me you want to do it until you can put any money into your property. And by then, I walk away and find someplace else. At the end of the day, what we want is a process whereby the land is recycled almost automatically, independent of the desire of the person. The city has control of this land, right? We want a vehicle or a way in which all this land becomes available for use by city residents instead of just sitting here. So that when a person wants to get a piece of property, instead of 18 months or 2 years, there's a reasonable amount of time, 3 months or so, where they can get the property, buy the property, own it, put their money in, rehab the house. And we kind of think that's one of the barriers of why a lot of our houses remain abandoned, just the turnaround time from when you can buy it to when you can rehab it. And so the land bank is working monthly. There is a subcommittee that meets monthly of the land bank, city planning, the treasurer's office, the mayor's office, And they have been meeting for about 6 months developing this process. I just haven't talked about it publicly. We are way down this road of redesigning the property reserve, of looking at the real estate property process. They have not made changes, but they are looking at recommendations. As soon as those recommendations are made, I'll make it I'll make it to council so that you can review it, and then we can have, if you need to have either 1 or 2 sessions to talk about it, I'll do that too. So everything will be open. But my point is, we've been working, although sometimes not people don't see it, but we've been working very diligently with the city, with the Treasurer's Department, with real estate, with the mayor's office, in order to create this new process that will be unveiled probably by the end of the year. That's a long conversation, but that's our work. That's what we've been doing. Ms. Harris?
But at the end of the day, it still belongs to the city of Pittsburgh. And maybe we sort of watch the properties more.
We actually
because
don't.
of the coordination.
We actually do not watch them more. We don't watch them more. Who, council?
My district.
Oh, the council does. The city does not.
No, I would appreciate seeing a list of anything you're thinking of taking.
We are not thinking about taking anything in your district.
Oh, okay.
There is no list. We are only looking at property right now in my district, Councilman Lavelle's district, and Miss Teresa Kell Smith's district on purpose. Because A, we have the most vacant land, and B, we are on the board, and so we can oversee the process for those 2 reasons. But we are not. Now, there will come a time when, certainly in Belle Silver, in the north side, there will come a time that the land bank will start looking at properties in those areas. We are not. There is no list at the moment.
Okay, we can cover all this in the briefing.
Yes. Any other conversation?
I just like to make sure I know when you start on the north side.
I will do that. No other conversation. Aye. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposers, no. Sorry. That goes to Urban Recreation Committee. Mr. Coghill is the chair. We have a new paper.
Bill 1348, resolution amending resolution number 444. The city's Department of Park and Recreation now seeks to rename the Special Summer Food Service Trust Fund as Special Food Service Programs Trust Fund in order to reflect that additional food service programming is conducted throughout the school year and not merely the summer.
Sense. Need a motion, Mr. Coghill.
Motion for a brief conversation.
Second.
Second, Mr.
I really don't have a conversation. I think it's just a change of language in this, so I didn't know if anybody had a remark.
No other conversation.
Just to thank them for their work.
Thank you for your work. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposers, nay. Positive recommendation. Next bill, please.
Bill 1349, resolution authorizing the Director of the Department of Parks and Recreation and/or the Director of the Department of Public Safety and Director of Office of Management and Budget to enter into an agreement an individual amount of $10,000 or less with performers, instructors, artists, referees, and persons with specialized skill in connection with the department's recreational and instructional programs and special event services.
Need a motion, Mr.
Motion to
Coghill.
approve.
Need a second. Any conversation? No conversation. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposers, nay. Next bill, please.
Bill 1350, resolution providing for an agreement, lease, and/or license agreement for the use of certain property for senior facilities for the provision of center services to seniors in an amount not to exceed $87,010 chargeable to and payable from the Seniors Community Program Trust Fund in the Department of Parks and Recreation.
Need a motion.
I believe this is just paying rent. Motion to approve.
Need a second.
Second.
Any conversation? No conversation. Ms. Harris.
I hope this also deals with transportation.
Mr. Director, if you would come forward, please.
You almost got out of here.
We tried. We tried.
She's good at asking questions.
Good morning. Please identify yourself for our viewing public.
I'm Luann Hurry from Parks and Recreation.
Ross Chapman, Director of Parks and Recreation.
Ms. Harris has the table.
Yes. Why I'm asking for the transportation, I was under the understanding, and so were a number of seniors on the north side, when they shut down the senior center that they were going to be picked up in each of their neighborhoods and taken to the center up in Brighton Heights. Is any of that being coordinated with any of those seniors that?
Yes, ma'am. So,
And it will come out of this money?
no, this is just rent. So it's an ongoing agreement for the West End Senior Center, for Lawrenceville Senior Center. Boys and Girls Club operate that facility, as well as for the new Morningside Healthy Active Living Center.
Can we just clarify that the West End Senior Center is not owned by the city of
That's
Pittsburgh?
correct.
We pay rent.
There's only one scenario where the rent is referred to as a user fee, and that's for the new Morningside Healthy Active Living Center. So, specific to the closure of the Northside Healthy Active Living Center last January, Jim Krashna, specifically, almost not exclusively him, but we shuttled folks from the Northside to Brighton Heights for probably 4 months, and it got to the point where there might have been 2 participants a week. There just weren't many people to shuttle. So we had typically a couple points of pickup, and after a while, and maybe during the warmer months, some folks tended to get there on their own. So we did our best with our resources. Jim was using his city car. We had a shuttle available at times, but our vehicles are kind of spread throughout the whole department. So we did what we could. Specific to this, there is no transportation allowance. There just isn't in this specific pool of funds.
Okay. I think what needs to be done, which hasn't been done, is send that to each of those seniors, letting them know, anyone that's a senior and belongs, or all the seniors on the north side, and let them know that you're doing pickup and delivery to the center. Because part of the money that was supposed to go for the new center ended up in that block of money to take care of landslides. So we're still waiting on the 2018 money to be used for landslides, and then get into the 2019. But those landslides have not been moving very quickly, and I'm probably going to end up down there today to try to find out why.
I think what we can do, Councilman, is reach out to those that were members and participants and actively engaged and just survey them and see what they're doing. I mean, I've been having a lot of conversations with a lot of people about surveying and the need to figure out what's going on in our communities, whether it's specific to youth engagement or senior services, to find out what people are doing, what they need, what are their transportation issues, what are their housing issues. I had a meeting with AARP and Age Friendly Pittsburgh and Allegheny County yesterday afternoon, and those are really important topics that everyone's trying to figure out how we can deliver better services. But I think specific to the Northside members, we can reach out to them certainly and find out what are they doing.
And
Do they
even
want
if
to
they're
get the
not a
project?
member, I think maybe you should reach out to
Sure.
them too, because they don't know that there's only one center. And as you know, they took the Troy Hill Center years ago. So,
We're going to put a
so
bike
they
lane from
get
your house to
the-
the senior center.
Huh?
We're going to put a bike lane from your house to the senior center so they can get there. No, just kidding.
No, this was promised to the seniors. So I think that maybe go that extra mile. I'm sure you can find out where the rest of the seniors live.
We'll do that and let you know.
Thank you so much.
welcome.
It'd be nice to survey them all.
Yes, ma'am. Sure.
Gross.
Thank you all. I think it's really important that we have in front of us 2 resolutions really about food insecurity and hunger, right? And so I'd like to remind my constituents, in fact, when I was working with Age Friendly, they were surprised to know that our seniors are receiving reduced cost meals at the senior center, and that's why they're so fundamentally important, right? And so I've had this conversation about kind of food insecurity with numerous interested groups and community partners, and they were all very surprised. I know that many of us have kind of approached this topic in various ways. Councilman Burgess advocated for the summer meals, and we do a tremendous job there now. Many of us have struggled to find extra dollars for the food pantries and food partners who are addressing this problem. We also know from many of our research partners that in some places in the city, food insecurity is as much of a cost burden, or I'd say food cost burden is almost as high as housing cost burden, right? We know it's a kind of three-part stool sometimes, where the childcare costs may be as high as housing cost burden, but food is a significant part. We also know from our partners in public schools, and we know from that food insecurity in families is a big problem, and groups like the Women and Girls Foundation that have taught us that so much of the poverty in the city, something like 70% of our truly poor are female-headed households with children in the home. And so I was reading about these things. I have, it's, I think, very timely. I was just reading an article about food stamp recipients facing a long wait for the next payment because of the government shutdown. And so I'll let, after this motion and motions resolutions, I'm going to motion for a post agenda on this topic, because I just feel like we need to stay very current in what's going on the ground. And so thank you all very much for your work. And I'm definitely supportive of this this budget here, and especially grateful that we have the new Morningside Senior Center, and we look forward to providing great service there. It'll be a lot easier to access than the old one, and much better location. And of course, the Boys and Girls Club is just a great location. It's always full every time I stop by, so it's a well-attended senior center, and that's what we like to see. Thank you for your work.
The motion to approve on the table. Any other conversation? All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposers, nay. Ms. Gross, you want to
Have a good
make
day.
a motion for?
Yes, so I'll just make a motion for a post agenda on, I'll call it like the state of food insecurity.
Cablecast?
Second.
Cablecast post agenda? Thank you.
Yes. Person moved in second. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposers, nay. Takes us to
Thank you. Have a good
Innovation,
day.
Performance, and Assets
Thank you.
Management Committee.
Oh, I should wear red. Darlene's got-
Mrs. Strasburger is the chair.
Motion to
Bill.
approve with discussion.
Wait a
Bill
minute,
1379,
One second.
resolution providing for the issuance of a
Thanks for
warrant
bringing us back on
in
track.
favor of KMDDI in the amount of $17,902.80 over the allowable RFQ limit for changes to the design and equipment to the city stat room as provided to the Department of Innovation and Performance and the Department of Public Works.
Motion to approve with discussion.
Second.
Second, Ms. Strasburger.
Do we have folks here to discuss this? Can come to the table? Good morning. Good morning.
Chris Hornstein, Assistant Director, Public Works.
Stacy Hill, Innovation and Performance.
So I understand this is a warrant to be able to pay over and above what was expected for this project. Can you just explain a little bit what the project was, and for members, and for why this is before us today?
So the project relates to the renovation of the city stats room. There we put in new technology, new furniture, renovated the carpet and the floor. These expenditures that are before you are related to the technology itself.
DPW doing it.
And I'm trying to understand, so the 17,902.80 is the additional amount
Yes.
over and above what the original amount was? What was the original amount that was allocated?
It was $20,000.
$20,000. Okay, so this is an additional 17,000. Okay, and do you know? Are you able to speak to why there was such an additional, almost double the cost?
I cannot speak to the changes that were made, but the additional cost, we put out an RFP, and the RFP was for $20,000. When changes were made by the procurement department, when changes were made to the design and to the equipment, then the cost exceeded the amount that was awarded. So the work was continued, but it wasn't a part of the original RFP.
Mm-hmm. Do we know what changes were made?
I do have the information for the quotes, the change orders of the quotes, but I can't really speak to the exact work that was. the project itself. But I have the original quote, I have the original change order, and the equipment that was ordered.
Right. So
That we can get you.
Yeah, all of the work that was done in the room was done in-house. Our people did the carpet, our people did the painting, our people ran the electrical, they ran the cabling for the technology. We purchased furniture, new furniture for the room, and we obviously purchased new technology, which was large screens that were direct wired to a laptop as opposed to a projector system. I believe those changes were related to those screens, as they were a higher cost than we originally anticipated.
So I understand this is, you asked for a waiver of Rule 8 so that this could appear on today's agenda, which makes me think that this is urgent. What is the urgency of this?
This change order was actually requested back in June, so they have been working on this and completing this work since June without a vehicle to pay this additional work.
I'll let other members ask questions and then maybe come back to some more questions.
Okay,
later.
Ms. Smith.
I would just ask, can we get an itemized breakdown of what the increase was? And because I mean, I think it's great. We really need a room like this. We should, especially when we talk about technology in the city being so big, and there's really not a place in the city that has a room that's renovated to the point where you can bring people in for these kind of presentations. So I just want to thank you both for your work. You're two people I really respect a lot in the city, get a lot done, but I'd like to get an itemized
I can
account.
get that to you,
Okay.
all of you.
Thank you. I'll abstain today till I get that. Thank you.
Harris.
IP, Public Works, right? Okay.
Yeah. Oh, and I want to say this
You-
should have been under my committee because it is Public Works. Just saying, even all the work.
Well, no, it's actually being done for them.
By them.
For them.
That was for them.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
is.
I know what I'm saying.
You said that you had put in for this and you had the 20,000, which would be enough to do what you wanted to do.
The original award was for 20,000.
Okay. And you put in what you wanted. Was it Public Works that added to that, or was it your department?
Changes to the project?
The changes to the project were spec'd by the old director of INP, Lee Hallard, the previous director. As to the reasons why, I can't really say. I wasn't involved in those conversations. We just were working with INP to execute the project.
Okay, because we've wasted some money over at POI, where we gave them money for something and it didn't work, so they ended up getting more money from us. And now there's a new director up there. And are you in charge of this piece of it?
I'm not sure what you're referring to.
The renovations that you are asking for in the computers. With
In
a
the
new
city staff room.
director, I just don't want to get something that another director had ordered unless the new director feels that it's necessary, because we're finding that we're getting
It's already-
technology and then again we're getting it over again.
It's already all installed.
You already have it installed?
Well, it's already been ordered. They're completing the work, which is why we're here now, because the project is coming to a close.
Yes. So just get us the itemized thing. Move on.
Yeah, let me see
I
the
can-
item.
I can provide that to all of you.
Okay.
And what is KMDDI?
I believe they're the manufacturer of the technology.
Equipment. Stuff is equipment. They're buying equipment, like big screens, big TVs. It's equipment.
Hey, do you want to tell me what KMDDI stands for?
No.
Okay, well.
Look it up. It takes 2
No,
seconds.
I mean, they put
We
it
have
down here.
technology.
They should know what it is, right?
Not my committee. Ms. Strasburger.
I'd like to see that.
Thank you. So I'm not going to propose to hold this a week because I understand that we need to move on this. I do wonder though why, if this change order was requested in June, why it's now that we're seeing this. Do you know the answer to that? Okay. Okay. So in addition to the itemized list, I'd like an answer to that, and then before Tuesday when we have the final vote on this. Okay. Thanks.
Bruce.
I'll just echo that same question. I was just wondering where it got stuck. It's not a large amount of money given the project, and I'm grateful that we did so much of the work internally, right, for a really major renovation. For basically, even if we approve this, it's under $40,000 total, right? And that's probably largely because we got, because DPW was able to do so much of the work. So that's wonderful. And we know we needed the upgrades, and I think the capacity that we're adding is capacity that we had a public discussion about and we're supportive of. But where this tangled up, like that someone can approve change orders that double a budget for anything is worrisome when we're talking about much larger budgets, and that the change order kind of just didn't happen or got lost in the bureaucracy for 6 months is also a little worrisome. Does it come to us via OMB?
The change order?
Yeah.
Were they aware of the change
Yeah.
order? I believe so.
Okay, so, yeah, I just echo Councilwoman Strasburger's question, and maybe this will be clear to us once we can see that more information. Appreciate it, that's all.
Two things. One is I will have our budget director and his staff kind of track this for us. He can do that. Second of all, I would guess, don't know this for a fact, but I bet you it has something to do with the changeover of the director in the department.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Where there was a lack of director for several months, and then there was a period when the director probably knew they were leaving and may have not been as careful in sending information. Don't know that for sure, but my spider senses, which I rely on a lot, any Marvel comic book fans other than me. Anyway, my spider senses tell me that, well, I guess you don't have to be a comic book fan, you can be a movie fan, although I'm a comic book guy. My spidey senses tell me that it had something to do with the change in directors, and the period of absence from the director has something to do with why we're getting this and the speed that we're getting it in. All right, there is a motion to approve on the table. All those in favor
Something
signify by
tells me we
saying
have
aye.
3 women up there who could be the director.
Opposers, nay.
Abstain.
One abstention. All right, good. That takes us to the last committee of the day, which is Intergovernmental Affairs.
Abstain, sorry, abstain.
2 abstentions. Intergovernmental Affairs Committee, Mr. Connor is the chair. We have a deferred paper.
Bill 983, resolution authorizing the mayor and the director of the Department of Finance to execute a quick claim deed and any other necessary or appropriate documents, agreements, and instruments conveying as is all the city's right, title, and interest, if any, in designated city-owned properties to the URA for consideration of $1 each, contingent upon the mayor and director of the Department of Finance first enter into a cooperation agreement with the URA setting forth the rights and obligations of the city and the URA relating to these initial conveyance, and further setting forth the rights and obligations of the city and the URA relating to the subsequent disposition of these properties to third parties.
Need a motion, Mr. Connor.
Motion to hold 6 weeks.
Second.
Second.
Make it 8.
No
I
comment.
can't make it 8, no.
You make it indefinitely? Just kidding.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposers, nay. It's held for 6 weeks. That exhausts our agenda. I do have some meeting announcements. A couple Cablecast post public hearing is scheduled this afternoon, 1:30, on bills 218, 1212, and 1213, as they relate to the historic designations of Abrams House and Westinghouse Memorial. Also, we have 2 Cablecast public hearings scheduled next week. The first is Tuesday, February 19th at 1:30 on Bill 2019-1272, as it relates to the renaming a trail after former Mayor Thomas Murphy. The second hearing is Wednesday, February 20th at 1:30 on Bill 2018-1008, as it relates to zoning changes on Larmer Avenue. Any other conversation, motions or resolutions? See none.
Happy Valentine's Day tomorrow, everyone.
Seeing none, a motion to excuse the absent. There is no absent members. There's a motion to approve the minutes and adjourn the meeting.
So moved.
Second. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposers, nay. We are adjourned.